Welcome to Rooted, Stories of Entrepreneurship and Agribusiness, a podcast from Colorado State University's Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics. I'm your host, Lauren Chenerides. I'm currently an assistant professor of agricultural business at Colorado State University, where I teach a course on agribusiness entrepreneurship. In this podcast series, we explore stories of how people across the food and agriculture industry identify problems, create solutions, and build or improve businesses that make an impact. What makes Rooted unique is that each episode is co-hosted by students in the agribusiness entrepreneurship course who bring their own curiosity and questions to the table. Their conversations with leaders across food and agriculture are a chance to learn, reflect, and share those insights with you, our audience of students, entrepreneurs, and change makers in food and agriculture. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'm excited to share these inspiring stories with you. Awesome. So today I'm joined by our student co-hosts, Quinn and Sophia. Both are agricultural business majors, and our guest today is Nick Ghan. Nick is currently a research and development food scientist at Bobo's, a Colorado-based natural foods company known for its oat bars, snacks, and commitment to wholesome, simple ingredients. Since joining the company, he has helped develop new product lines and flavor profiles, worked closely with procurement teams to source ingredients, and supported cross-functional innovation across R&D and operations. Nick graduated from Colorado State in 2024 with a degree in food science and human nutrition. As a student, he worked as an undergraduate research assistant at CSU's Food Structure and Function Lab and completed a brewery operations internship at Ramskeller Pub and Grub, where he helped lead recipe development for craft sodas and seltzers. Awesome experience, and we're really happy to have you here, Nick. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So I'll turn it over to Quinn to kick us off with some questions.
All right. So just to provide some background for our audience, could you tell us about your professional and personal experience up until this point, starting from undergrad?
Copy that. So I started in undergrad at CSU, originally applied underneath the business school to be an accounting major. Did that for a semester and realized that was COVID year 2020 during the time when all the classes were online in the dorms, and I realized that was not going to work for me. So halfway through my freshman year, I decided to switch to food and nutritional sciences with a dietetics concentration. I knew I loved working out. I knew I always liked going to the gym with my friends and going out skiing and hiking and everything like that. I've always been outdoorsy, and I've always kind of been that kind of kid. So I was like, let's learn about some bodybuilding. Let's learn about human physiology. And did that for about a year and a half. And entering my junior year, coming up probably sophomore, junior year, I was doing some research into what life would be like as a dietitian and recognized that probably wasn't going to be the most enjoyable thing for me, and transitioned over to food product development. I jokingly like to call it that I joined the dark side, where I started off learning about how to have the best food for you, and then eventually started transitioning towards how do we make the best food for the people.
What information made you think to yourself, dietitian is just not going to work out? What drove that change really?
So in 2020, I don't know the regulatory body that made this decision, but they officially decided that you needed a master's of science in order to become an RD, a registered dietitian. Prior to 2020, people were grandfathered in, and it only required a bachelor's of science for you to be able to take the RD exam, to be able to sit on the exam and take the class and do whatever you needed to do. 2020 was the first year in which people were not grandfathered in under that policy. So I was the first cohort of students that was required to take a master's of science in order to be a dietitian. And I realized that after doing the master's of science and doing the required dietetic internship that would have been required after that, it would have been about 7 years of school. I didn't really see the cost-benefit relationship there. A lot of dietitians start off making less than I do now, and the higher end of the pay scale does not necessarily compare to R&D and product development. And I kind of recognized, one, I did not want to do 7 years of school, and then two, I didn't want to do 7 years of school for the pay that a dietitian would typically get and the lifestyle that a dietitian would typically have. I don't want to work in a clinical setting in a hospital, and I recognized that as soon as we were doing blood draws, that was not going to be good for me. And frankly, I had to switch things up. Yeah.
And real quick too, what went from accounting to to human nutrition?
To be honest, accounting was a poor decision on my part. I was one of these kids that was like really into entrepreneurship in high school, and I thought, well, in order to make money, you need to understand money. And if I become an accountant, then I'll be able to understand the finances of business, and that'll prepare me to be able to have my own business one day. And I'm sure that works for some people. I don't want to discredit that in any sense at all. But I recognized, one, I just wasn't going to enjoy accounting, and two, I wasn't going to be an entrepreneur overnight, so I was going to have a job for a little bit. And I recognized, well, shoot, if I'm going to have a job, I might as well have a job that's something I enjoy and something that's applicable to entrepreneurship. So that's kind of where product development really shined to me. This is something I can learn and I can utilize and do on my own for my own business one day, hypothetically, if life ends up taking me down that route. But it also gets me a really good job in an industry that's growing and it's not going to get taken over by AI or anything like that in the next future. So it kind of connected all the dots and it hit everything I needed.
That's cool.
Like, as you've been telling us about your personal and professional experience so far, I've noticed personally that there seems to be a trend in which you are really prioritizing lifestyle choices. And I know of a lot of professionals in which finding that balance and finding what's going to make them happy is, a lot less cut and dry. What do you think motivated your lifestyle choices, your prioritization of those? How did you determine so early that this was going to be the best course for you long term?
A couple different things. One, I would say my parents. My parents both worked for whether it be city or county government when I was a kid. They probably had the opportunity to go out and make more money, but they decided to have secure jobs with secure retirements to be able to take care of us. It also allowed them to work from home, allowed them to get good PTO, good benefits. And as a result, I have a lot of core memories as a kid of me traveling, going on road trips, whether it be skiing, camping, hiking, all that stuff with my family, my mom, my dad, and my little sister. And so from a kid, from the time I was very, very little, I recognized that time is your most important asset. You're not going to get your time back, and it's really important to spend your time doing something that you truly value. Can you say the question one more time?
Oh, you've addressed it pretty well, I think. It's just prioritization and figuring out how you determine those priorities. But
yeah, and like what I'm hearing too is that so much of your core memories, like your childhood, your upbringing, you take that with you and you're like, okay, how can I recreate similar elements or relive those similar experiences in adulthood?
Definitely. Yeah. I have a vision in my head of me being able to take my future kid out of school on a Wednesday to go skiing.
Yeah.
And to be able to, that's one of the big reasons why I want to be in an entrepreneurial job or like be an entrepreneur myself, so I have the control to be able to do that and be able to work Saturday instead of Wednesday or whatever it happens to be. So I do have this like vision as to like how I want to spend my time in the future, and I recognize that it's not all just work. It's not all just your career, and your work-life balance is extremely important.
Yeah.
How do you align that vision and where you want to be in the future to what you're doing now? And do you plan ahead, or is it more so you just ride the waves of life to the best you can and see how you can make that work?
I think it's a little bit of both. To be honest, life without a plan is a little bit chaotic, so you definitely need to have an idea of where you want to be and where you're going. I certainly have an idea of what I want to be and what the kind of person and the kind of spot I want to be in my career 5 years from now. At the same time, you can't get too emotionally distraught when the plan doesn't go to plan. I think one thing that's really common among our generation is we tend to have unrealistic expectations, and these unrealistic expectations can really hurt us, especially when things don't really go to plan. And I think even if your expectations are completely realistic, you're going to have all sorts of things go awry. Nothing is ever going to go perfectly. And although having a plan is very important, I think what's probably more important is your ability to adapt, your ability to change the plan, and to recognize, shoot, maybe one door closed, but another door opened, and have the flexibility there. Be able to keep your plan constantly moving. Like the end can still stay as the same end point, but the points to get there can be constantly moving. And you can still get to your same end goal by having a different journey and a different destination.
Yeah, and on that, I just can you give us an example of how that's shown up in your workplace? I mean, working for Bobo's, and I mean, having an end goal of maybe delivering a certain product. Like, can you give us an example and walk us through how a plan might not have gone according to plan?
Yeah, I can talk about today, to be honest. So this morning we were testing a new product on a new piece of equipment. We have a new bar that we want to make that is 1.3 ounces. It's a little bar about yay big. We want to fill it with fruit filling. And ideally, we'd like to make this bar using the least amount of capital expenditure possible. We'd love to use our same equipment, which equipment is by far one of the most expensive things that we would have to purchase. So same parts, same equipment, same personnel, labor costs, everything along those lines. And today we had to trial it basically on a piece of equipment that we would typically use to make a little bite, we now had to use to make a little bar. And something that would be as simple like as changing the shape, one might think it could be done fairly easily. In fact, it wasn't. And today we had a lot of troubleshooting, we spent a lot of time, and now we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to have serious discussions as an organization, next steps forward. Do we use the piece of equipment that we had in mind? Do we need to order new parts? If we do have to order new parts, how does that affect our P&L? How much of this product are we going to have to sell to be able to make up that money? Are we going to have to run the machine slower? If we run the machine slower, what does that mean for product throughput? Oh my gosh, labor cost. That's the big thing as soon as you start turning down your machine speed. So we constantly are having things not necessarily go our way, but instead of problems, we look at them as opportunities for improvement, and we just keep on chugging forward.
Wow, that's a great example. Yeah.
I'm also curious, like, that does inspire this other question in which, like, Bobo's does seem to have a very collaborative work environment relative to the other places that you have worked and, like, the decision structure. Do you find that this type of working environment is what you would like to cultivate for your own professional experience in the future? Or...
Yeah, Bobo's is really special in the sense that we act very fast and we act cross-functionally, like together very rapidly. Bobo's, I'd say one of the unique selling propositions, or maybe unique value propositions is the better way of putting it, of our company, is our ability to react quickly, decisively, as a team, and to be able to do it right. And that is really one of our superpowers as an organization based on how small we are and based on how most of us are on site in Loveland. If we have an emergency, if there is a decision to be made, I just walk to the director of blank department's office and I go and chat with them, and we have a conversation if we need to. And if we need to schedule meetings, we'll schedule meetings, and we can react very quickly, and that is just one of the beautiful, beautiful things about being at like a small company like Bobo's. And as for comparing it to places where I've been previously, it's kind of tough because this is the biggest company that I've worked with, but I still recognize that it's still small business. So I don't really have the experience at like a big, big company to really compare, but I can compare what I'm currently doing to academia, which is what I truly knew. And I can say that the industry in general is far more chaotic than academia is. And that's like a good and a bad thing, if that makes sense.
I was actually going to ask about that. Considering your lab experience in academia as well as in your current job, I'm very interested in knowing, like, I have some personal experience being a lab technician, and the majority of the time, sometimes you get to do some really, really, really cool experimental stuff, but mostly you're just in a room homogenizing things or doing some similar repetitive process for 8 hours. Do you find that to be your experience in the job that you work today, and where does industry R&D kind of intertwine with academic?
I'm super glad you asked that question. So this is one of the beautiful things about Bobo's and why I love the company and why I still work there 18, 19 months after I started, and why I'm happy to work there going forward, is let's take a step back. So when I graduated, I had a lot of friends in my cohort who graduated. We all went out and found jobs. I won't name companies by name, but I had a friend who joined as an R&D position at a company that's extremely large. They're based out of Denver, one of the largest companies in their subset of industry, and they were in an R&D position at that company. The person I knew spent all day, every day, quote, chopping cheese into squares and presenting them to panelists for sensory panel. Mm. They spent months and months and months of their life and their career doing the same thing every single day in support of a bigger project, in support of R&D and innovation like initiatives, but still very repetitive, very much kind of as you're describing right now, kind of as how academia was to me. Assay after assay, doing the same thing again and again, and which is totally fine. Me personally, that wasn't going to be fulfilling for me. So I'm really lucky that I got into a company like Bobo's where you have to wear a lot of different hats. I've had a completely different experience where I'm from. I've worked on countless different projects. It would be tough to name them. Every single week, every single day, my priority list changes in response to the organization. There's projects that I certainly have that are long-term projects, but I'm certainly not doing them every day. Mm-hmm. Every single day is different. It's a new challenge. It's a new opportunity for improvement, and I'm balancing like 10 or 11 different projects at a time. So my experience as an R&D food scientist has been completely different as to that as my friend from my cohort. And that's largely based on company size and company needs. We were chatting, actually, as we were walking in about this. If you work for a big company, like that said company, they're going to have the exact specifics that they want from you. We want sensory experience, R&D experience, this program, these tools. It's going to be super dialed. Have you used this equipment before mm-hmm. in the lab? Because that's what a large company wants. You're going to be filling the same role mm-hmm. for the most part every day, and you're a cog in the machine. Mm-hmm. Versus a small company like Bobo's, when we hire people, we put a greater emphasis on your attitude, your work ethic, your experience, specifically like the diversity of your experience. Because in my position, I have to wear multiple hats every day. It's constantly changing. Adaptation is the name of the game. And the needs of a smaller business are drastically different than the needs of a larger business, and your experience doing lab work for a smaller business are completely different than it would be in a big one. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that helps to kind of answer. Yeah, thumbs
That's
up.
Great.
Yeah, such a good answer. Touch on so many. One of the things that you mentioned too, the fact that your every day to day might be changing in terms of what your priority list is, and that's driven by organizational needs. Can you extrapolate on that a little bit? Of is the organization watching certain trends, or where are they learning how that decision-making process is getting directed?
Yeah, I think one of the lowest hanging fruits that I can discuss is just like what I've spent like 90% of my job doing. So in January, February, March, around that time, don't quote me on the exact month, I would say the majority of my time was spent doing new product innovation, specifically making the new recipes and then scaling them up for large-scale production with the hope of generating new recipes to present to customers in the hopes that they get sold. Mm-hmm. In the last 6 months, I'm not really sure like exact dates on when this started changing over. Mm-hmm. I've spent the majority of my time doing cost improvement projects, new supplier verifications, and it still is very much like bench-topping R&D work, but instead of design new flavor, it is switch the peanut butter to a new peanut butter supplier so we can save money but have it taste the same and have a better supply chain in response to X, Y, and Z. Right. So I've noticed personally that the needs of the business have changed over the last couple of months, and from what I've experienced, we still are innovating, and we still have quite the focus on innovation, but it is a lot more shifted to cost improvement and supply chain support issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that coincides with a lot of changes happening, politically and without getting into politics. Well, we'll just say, the climate is changing.
Yeah, and I can't speak for Bobo's and as the company in itself, but I can tell you that 90+% of all oats that come to America are from Canada. The majority of the oat crop is Canadian oat crop. The majority of the sugar that is in the American food supply chain comes from Mexico. So we have very, very, it's very important for us to work on those initiatives.
Right. Yeah, trade partnerships.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Maintaining supplier relationships.
Yep. So interesting.
Yeah. No, thank you for elaborating on that. That is really good to know. If you guys want to try and pivot back to some of the other questions that we have going on as well, I totally got sidetracked. Thank you for keeping the flow.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, this is something that I have been really intrigued about. When you graduate from CSU and are trying to find a job, getting it together, where do you find the personal divide between career aspirations and advocating for yourself, like having the job work for you, not you work for the job, versus just the practicality of employment? Do you think it's realistic to be expecting to get we've had some of this conversation previously, but should people be a little bit more flexible when they're coming out of graduation, do you think?
Yeah, I experience the same difficulties that we all do when we come out of graduation. As I said, maybe unrealistic expectations is a good way of describing it. We all envision ourselves graduating from college and getting that perfect job. That's exactly what we wanted the second that we got it. And, for some people that happens, but for the majority of people it's not. But that doesn't mean that you should be disheartened in any way. From my own personal experience, when I started at Bobo's, I probably took a position that was, quote, beneath me. The job description for the position did not require a college degree. The pay was definitely lower than where I wanted it to be, as were the benefits. There were a lot of factors that played a role. But I recognized that it was a great opportunity for growth, a great opportunity to get my foot in the door. And I showed up, grinded, put the work in, devoted my life to that company for however long it's been. And thankfully, they reciprocated back towards me, and I got promoted. I am now at probably the position where, in my opinion, in my head, I probably should have started when I went out of undergrad. But who's to say that I did deserve that position out of undergrad? I mean, if I thought so, you know what I mean? I'm biased. I certainly value myself more than the average person. So when I see it, me taking that lower position, it's the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I had all those opportunities for growth. And if I was so caught up on the fact that this doesn't require a college degree, or the pay isn't where I wanted it to be, or I don't get enough PTO to be able to do the activities that I want to do, then I wouldn't be here where I am now. I wouldn't have the experience and the skill set. So it's kind of when we were in the brewing industry, we'd joke about how you kind of have to just kind of deal with it for a little bit. I don't know how the best way to say it, but when you're grinding fresh in industry, sometimes you kind of have to do the undesirable work for the undesirable compensation. But it's just paying your dues. That's a great way to put it. And if you're willing to pay your dues, especially at a small company like Bobo's, they will recognize it, and they will support you, and they recognize the dues, and they've definitely paid me back.
Yeah, and I think on that note too, it's there's, like you alluded to, there's so much that can be learned about yourself in that process, about even the starting, especially in a company like Bobo's, and we see this a lot in the service industry too, or even retail, starting and getting to know all facets of the company then you can work, as long as you see a growth path. And that's another thing I hear too, is that it seems to me like you saw within, in the process of getting to know Bobo's and their company, that there was a growth path for you. And that is, that's something really valuable, I feel like, with working for a company, just seeing that you have a place to grow into.
That's a fantastic point, and I would almost say that that might be the most important characteristic for you self-evaluating if the job is going to be right for you. Because, I mean, if there's no room for growth, what are you doing there at the beginning of your career? The whole reason you're there is to learn and to develop and to grow. And if that opportunity isn't there, then there's going to be a place that will foster that with you. And there's certain indicators that you'll find when you're like looking up companies, whether it be like their financial results or like the company culture. For me at Bobo's, I reckon I was the second person ever on the R&D team. My boss at that point was the senior manager of R&D. She's since been promoted. But I realized, oh, wow, I'm literally person number 2. And this company is growing. So this department is only going to get bigger. And I was filling a new position that had never been created at the company before, rather than filling the role of someone who had left, if that makes sense. And seeing those indicators showed me, it's like, oh, this is not going to be just an R&D technician position. This is something where I can grow into the food scientist that I see myself being one day.
That's wonderful.
Riding along that, let's say that Bobo's did not treat you as kindly as they have and did not provide you these opportunities to grow. Every day when you're working, do you try to assess like your happiness within the job and your growth within the job? And what metrics or indicators would you use, let's say if Bobo's was not treating you right, to be like, I need to go and move on and find another place to be?
I think it's super tough if you're constantly evaluating if the grass is greener on the other side. If you're doing that, you're never going to be happy. And I think like that doesn't necessarily mean just keep doing something if it's not going well for you, but I certainly don't think you can beat yourself up because you had a bad day or a bad week or a bad month. I mean, companies have bad years. So the way I view it, are you going home every day somewhat happy? Like, are you feeling accomplished? Do you feel valued? Are people at work treating you nicely? Do you have a good work-life balance? Like, I think those are really the things that like I use to evaluate how the company has treated me. And like, don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of bad days, but the way I look at it, the amount of horrifically bad days I can count on 2 hands, and probably maybe even 1. And I've been there for almost 2 years. So if I have single-digit bad days that like I really don't enjoy it in the whole 18 months that I've been there, plus or minus, life is pretty good.
Yeah.
And so like that's honestly my main measure of happiness at the company, and if they're treating me right, is do I get opportunities to be able to prove myself and improve myself, and am I still getting all these work opportunities coming towards me, and am I still happy? Provided those 2 things are happening, life is good. And like, yeah, your own personal happiness is the most important thing when you get down to it. Like,
So, relative to your academic versus professional experience, what skills did you learn in academia, in college, that have proven useful versus what you found to be industry skills that you've developed as a part of working?
well, I don't want to discredit any part of my academic journey because I think everything was important. Everything plays a role. I'd say the most important thing by far was my hands-on opportunities, both in the lab with Dr. Van Buiten and in the Ramskeller Pub and Grub interning under Jeff and Jeff. The ability to actually get your hands on the bench, doing assays, doing lab work time and time again, and getting the repetition behind that is so unbelievably useful. When you look at like the labs that you do at CSU, it's not to discredit the value of any of them, but you simply just don't get enough time on the bench in order to truly become proficient doing laboratory work. If you're just doing the labs that CSU offers, 1 day a week is just simply not enough, especially for like 1 or 2 hours. So from my perspective, getting into the lab, doing it time and time again, getting repetition bench topping, getting the muscle memory with your hands and your fingers to be able to open test tubes and operate pipettes, and to be able to have the attention span to be able to actually fill up like 100 and some odd well plate, like whatever it happens to be, right? So I'd say like that is certainly one of the most important factors there.
In your own very anecdotal perspective in our generation and how we approach employment, do you think that there are general trends that you're worried about versus what you are excited about that we bring to the table as Gen Z, I guess Gen Alpha, millennial or late stage millennials?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the lowest hanging fruit there is AI. Our generation has grown up with AI. We've gone through school with AI now. I think ChatGPT became like really popular my senior year of college. So that means for you guys, you've basically gone through all of undergrad with that being a useful tool for you guys. And I'm starting to see it in my industry. Like my company is having us do an AI class now, so we can learn how to best utilize ChatGPT to be able to make our jobs easier and make our work better. And to be able, our generation grew up with the iPhones, like every piece of technology that you could possibly imagine. So we're super in touch with these things. We're super in touch with social media. We're super in touch with how the world is and how fast moving it's operating. And that gives us our unique selling power because we can constantly adapt and we can take advantage of these new technologies that older people are just simply not willing to adapt or take on. And I mean, in my company, we're certainly exploring the use of AI both on the production floor, but also to be able to make business decisions. And if you can be on like the ground floor of that, knowing how to utilize AI to make your job easier, to produce high quality work for you, it's going to be so much, like it's going to be unbelievably helpful. And that's really where I think Gen Z is going to be able to leverage themselves the next however long, 10, 20 years. I mean, when you look at, we had a company meeting actually a week ago, and someone in our company high up said it was something like 80-90% of the S&P 500's growth was driven by AI stocks in like the last, I think it's quarter, year, month, however long it was. But nevertheless, you're starting to see these AI companies and these AI stocks really being the driving force behind like the stock market right now. And us being on the ground floor of that, us understanding how to use AI and being early adopters is going to put us miles ahead of the competition.
Can I ask a follow-up question on the AI with the at work, the class that you're taking? What can you tell us a little bit more about that and sort of what does the company hope that you learn through this course?
So there's all sorts of things to know about, like this course is specifically on ChatGPT and the best ways to utilize ChatGPT. Essentially, the overarching goal is to stop using it as an internet browser. You should not be going into ChatGPT and, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. Hey, make this for me. You need to feed the AI as much information and as much context about your situation as possible. So whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to plan, you need to ask AI to make revisions on itself. You need to ask it to ask you like what it needs to be able to solve these problems. It's not super complex, but it makes sense. If you don't give it the context and like the detailed, in-depth context of what you want to do, it's going to perform just like any other search engine. It's going to scour the internet, find the most popular result, and that might not be exactly what you want. But this class really teaches us develop what's called your GPTs, the little sidebars right there, to be able to have, this is my, I'm making it up right now, but this is my email request GPT, or my product development GPT, or like my material analysis GPT, or whatever you need to do. You need to feed the system as much information as possible so it gives you back the best results it possibly will.
So the individual projects or threads?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, and so best way to put it is like, you should be asking ChatGPT what it needs to be able to create the prompt that you want, rather than just giving it the prompt and assuming that it's going to give you a 10 out of 10 response right away.
Interesting.
You ask it, what do I need to do? What information do I need to give you to revise the prompt that you've already given me? And it'll spit out a list of like 10, 20 factors sometimes of things that you didn't think of. And that's all the depth that like you need to plug in to be able to get the results that you need.
And does the company have any fears about using this? I mean, especially when you're working for a young company and maybe developing recipes that you don't want shared in the greater world.
Yeah, so we've talked about the security side of this. I'm certainly not a network specialist or a security person, but to my understanding, when you use a business ChatGPT account, it no longer shares it with like the machine, with like the learning AI, like constant. You know how like whenever you post like anything in there, it steals it and it's using it to constantly better itself. If you set up like a business or an organizational account, there's settings that you can click for the entire organization to where it no longer keeps or steals or uses your data to be able to develop more prompts. So that's another aspect to this program and this class is how can we use it the most responsibly with the least risk for data leaks and everything along those lines. Because you're right, we are doing things that are confidential, whether it be like emails or recipes or things of that nature. So
Right. Fascinating.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so definitely a skill that our generation, maybe not mine anymore, can capitalize on.
Yeah, I mean, we have machine learning that we've looked at to see how cooked the Bobos are. I mean, you can have a camera that is there's a great YouTuber about this actually. It's a potato farm, and I love it. They're able to sort the potatoes based on defects, based on AI and cameras. And it basically scans the potatoes going in line, and it's like, oh, this is a green one, this is a bruised one, this one has a crack in it, etc. And it's able to see it, learn from it, constantly adapt, and kick everything offline. And we're exploring the same things at Bobo's. Using a camera to determine, is this underbaked? Is this overbaked? Is it the proper size? Does it have any like noticeable visual defects? And so AI not only is going to be used for like those prompt generation office tasks that I was referring to, but also like machine learning on the floor. It is absolutely going to be taking over.
Nice. Yeah.
What skill deficits within our generation have you noticed and think are something to be aware of for the workforce?
Oh, once again, lowest hanging fruit is probably the math skills, to be honest. We were the generations of technology and calculators, and when was the last time you've done math on a pen and paper, like with your hand? And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say like you need to be able to do math pen and paper, but the foundational mathematical concepts are difficult for our generation. And like your algebra teacher was right, where like you're going to be using math every day. And there's plenty of times at Bobo's where I've been not necessarily stumped, but I've gotten some anxiety based on like the mathematical equations that I have to run and like the tests that I have to do. I mean, I'll give a perfect example. I had to design our accelerated shelf life program, and that essentially is storing products at an elevated temperature and then comparing their aging to products at like a normal temperature. It's not rocket science, but there's a somewhat complex mathematical equation that goes into that, and you have to really understand what each variable is doing, how modifying the variables changes things, and you certainly don't need to be an expert, but frankly, I didn't have to take a college math class in the entire time I was here. I was able to get that all done in high school with concurrent enrollment credits, and I have not taken an algebra or trigonometry calculus class in 6 years, 7 years. So when I talk about like the skills that like could potentially like hurt me, or like the ones that are like I'm most lacking in, I would genuinely say those analytical math skills. Absolutely.
Yeah, we definitely in our program, we have a math requirement, but we also are very careful about, when when and where we can include analytical examples and problems. We have certain classes like our data-driven decision-making class, where we bring in not only, okay, what is the core underlying mathematical concept here, in a palatable way, nothing, again, not rocket science, but then how do you apply that? And I think that connection too, because what you're talking about, it's not just the formula that you needed, it's just how do I apply it? I have a very applied problem. I need to back it up with a mathematical equation, which may not be super complex, but you also probably have to communicate that to other people who are going to make decisions.
And not to go back to where we were, but like this is like, that is by far like one of the most important things when it comes to like adaptability on the floor, is to be able to communicate with people that might not necessarily have the same background as you. So like when at Bobo's, I'll use the perfect example. I'd say 80 to 90% of our production staff don't speak English. Or maybe they speak a little bit of English, but when given the opportunity to do training in Spanish or in English, they will choose the Spanish alternative. So not only do you have to know the math and how it applies to the floor and like the production environment, but you have to be able to communicate that with people who don't understand it, who cannot communicate with you, and don't have the same educational background as you do. And like when we were talking about like the things that are like most important for my success, that's where the hands-on experience really becomes crucial. It's where the lab experience and the time in the brewery really made or broke my ability to succeed, because instead of just working with the equations on a piece of paper, then you're actually getting practice applying them to the real world situation before you end up out there in the real world and you get the deer in the headlights situation.
Yeah, it's good to have the kind of the test environment here, and then prepare you for the industry setting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would encourage everyone to take advantage of as many hands-on opportunities as possible to be able to showcase the skills you've learned, because as I said, it's not to discredit anything from class or from lab, but I firmly believe that if you're just doing the bare minimum and you're just doing class and lab, it's not going to be enough. You need to go a little bit above and beyond and be able to get your hands-on experience, so you're still going to get trained when you show up, but it's just not as much training and onboarding necessary, and it makes you so much more appealing of a candidate.
Yeah.
Within networking, how much of like your professional success would you attribute to knowing people versus knowing what you can do and demonstrating that?
It's a tough one. None of the jobs I got was because I knew someone there. I did not know anyone in the food structure and function lab prior to working there with Dr. V, except for knowing Dr. V through school. I had not known really anyone at the brewery outside of just the professors through school at the brewery. And same thing with Bobo's. I had no friends, no connections at Bobo's whatsoever. I actually applied for that job by going to the company website and applying under the careers path. So in my personal experience, I have not necessarily needed those industry connections, and I've been able to find my way, kind of as we chatted about off camera, by running through every open door possible and taking every opportunity that you can get. That's honestly the way I've lived life, and that's honestly that's why I am the way I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I wonder too, to the extent of what role did references play in the Bobo's job, maintaining, you mentioned a few professors here. What role did the references play?
So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because if there was anything that was somewhat luck-based and a combination of luck and skill, it was my references at CSU. The work I did in the food structure and function lab was related to gluten and gluten science. We were doing a lot of work with baking and sourdough bread, and specifically the gluten molecule. And Bobo's is a gluten-free bakery. So that aligned perfectly. I was able to chat about all the things I had learned in my lab, and it was very applicable information to the company. In addition to that, my senior project of all things was to run accelerated shelf life testing for a company called Bar You Eat out of Steamboat, Colorado. And so I had already conducted an ASLT test. I had already developed a very small, not very robust ASLT program. So the fact that, and Bobo's wanted something like that.
What's ASLT?
Oh, my apologies. Accelerated shelf life testing.
Okay, thank you.
So when essentially it worked kind of serendipitously, or like that my senior project was a task that the company that was going to hire me wanted me to do. Mm-hmm. And then the professor I had researched under in undergrad did research similar to that company. Mm-hmm. And then not only that, but my boss at Bobo's was a process engineer at Boston Beer Co., and she actually developed some of the flavors for Truly Hard Seltzer. So when we chat about the R&D, Ramskeller Pub and Grub developing craft sodas and seltzers, that aligned perfectly because she asked me, what have you done in your recipe design? Because she's designed recipes. Mm. And so, yeah, the fact that I had those references was absolutely crucial, because without them, I would not be nearly as good of a candidate. But it was also a little bit of being in the right place in the right time and finding the perfect job that I could best leverage my references for. Because with Bobo's, every single part of my career path kind of led into the needs of the position. And that's why I was able to stand out. At least that's why I believe I was able to stand out.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
What do you think has been, if you had to narrow it down to like one single professional relationship, who has been like the most important in either developing where you wanted to go in your career, getting inspiration, actually helping you, and what did you do to develop that?
I'd say, oh man, that's so tough. Probably say Dr. Caitlin Clark of CSU Spur. She was a PhD student under Charlene Van Buiten when I was in her class or her lab as an undergraduate research assistant. Kate did, or I guess Dr. Clark now. Wow, she did all my training on the lab. She taught me everything I knew with bench topping, as for assay development, as for reading like scientific literature. Kate taught me a lot. She gave me, you might like this term, what we call the unspoken curriculum, things that you're not able to learn in class, but you need someone like a really down-to-earth professor or a grad school student to tell you how it truly is. Kate was that person for me who told me what industry is like and what academia is like and what she has experienced throughout her path. And even to this day, I still call, text, email Kate when I have questions. Hey, I need help with this program at CSU. I asked her about incubators a couple of weeks ago. I want to buy a new incubator. I don't know which incubator is the best one. What companies are reliable? I have a PhD professor at my disposal that I can reach out to that knows everything about this. So, for me personally, I have to give a huge shout out to Dr. Clark. She works at CSU Spur, and she worked underneath Dr. V while she was here, for being not only a mentor, but a source of encouragement. And she's part of the reason why I didn't have unrealistic expectations coming out of college, which was one of the most useful things I could have possibly asked for.
Oh, that's so nice. It's nice to have a good mentor, that can work so closely and be that kind of like guidepost. And, in that sense too, how has your experience, this will be our question to wrap us up today, how has this experience served as a runway for you and your entrepreneurial aspirations?
Oh, that's a great question. So because I pride myself in that I've worked with every single department at Bobo's besides finance. Whether it be production, like the operations side, quality assurance, supply chain, shipping and receiving, warehousing, you name it, the training department, I've worked with them. I've seen every single aspect of the company from start to finish, and it has prepared me so unbelievably well for my entrepreneurial goals. There was a point in which it almost scared me away, I won't lie, seeing like how the company operates and seeing how much goes into creating a successful food and beverage company. It's a little bit scary, but now I'm starting to realize that if I do this for a couple more years, I might very well be in the position to where I can handle the operations side, I can handle the quality side, I can handle the product development side. And shoot, if you can do those three, that's like most of the way there. Like, so the way I view it is every single experience at Bobo's, not only is it like stacking my resume, but it's also just creating a more robust version of myself that is going to be a better entrepreneur.
And do you have a product in mind?
Shoot, if you would have asked me that a year and a half ago, I would have said salsa. When I was in CSU, I was toying around with making a bunch of homemade salsas and jarring them up and potentially selling them in the farmers markets. I've since fallen off of that. I don't really know. I could see myself in the brewing industry. I like doing a small craft brewery.
Yeah.
I could see myself owning a restaurant. I could see myself doing like straight production operations, like when it comes to like the salsa.
But still open-ended.
It's still open-ended.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I will say is I'm going to lean off of my roots and what like those familial good memories to me. Like the idea with the salsa company was my parents had always made fresh homemade salsa all the time when we were kids. And like I remember as like a little kid, my mom would like make the mild salsa for us that was fresh and the spicy salsa for them. I remember it being really good and nothing that you could get like in the grocery stores. And I'd love to be able to take those core memories that I have of like a really good, enjoyable product and be able to share that with other people. So whether that be salsa or beer or something else, I have no idea what the future is going to hold. I mean, shoot, the baking industry is pretty nice. I could go make cookies or muffins. So like, we'll see. We'll find it out.
Well, it's a great core why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast, Nick, and to our co-hosts, Quinn and Sophia. Just been grateful to have you both here with us.
Grateful that we've all been able to show up. Thank you guys so much for the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.